That was just
dipping
getting you
in
ready
sugar.
for cocaine.
Yeah. No wonder we're all addicted.
Put that out. That little spoon they gave you.
You had your
That
own
was
little
also made out of sugar.
Yes. That's probably where the idea came from. Damn. You know, they're making all these movies about the history of things, right? Like Tetris and all that. Why couldn't they do that with fucking Fun Dip? But it starts with some whacked out cokehead fucking from the 80s that lost everything. And fucking is like, holy fucking shit. Damn.
You want to sell more candy? Let me show you.
And he's like, I'm going to put sugar, but it's going to be Kool-Aid sugar with this fucking weird stick. That we got him in the future. Bam.
See, what I'm saying is this helps your business and it helps mine.
It's going to help mine in the long run. This is for my grandkids right now.
Quite good. Attack warning. Is it for real? Attack warning is for bloody real.
Live from Colorado Springs, the Drop Culture Podcast.
Want to confirm, is this an exercise? Roger, copy. This is not an exercise.
Come on, quick, get down. 1, 2, 3.
Welcome, everybody, to the Dropped Culture Podcast. This is that podcast where we pick up that piece of pop culture you forgot about or missed, shine it up real nice, and cram it in your ear holes. I'm Dan.
That was perfect. I'm Brock.
And
That was very well said.
Oh, well, thank you.
Well, I hadn't heard it in a long time, so
well,
I'm excited.
right on. Me too.
Yeah.
So welcome back. I know we've been gone a little bit, but hey, here we are, doing something a little different. We're not doing a movie this week, are we, Brock?
No.
What are we doing?
Something original.
Yeah. This was a fun idea.
It's our very own what ifs, but we didn't pick our own what if. It was chosen for us.
By
we chose each
other. I remember having this conversation via text, I think, while I was sitting at a Denny's in Casper, Wyoming at like 9 o'clock at night or something like that.
Fucking works.
Yeah.
It's like, no shit. That's a good idea. Because honestly, I mean, it's such a really cool thing that you can just say, okay, what if this happened? But hey, I want to see what somebody else says about it. That's fucking cool as shit.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So it was fun. It was fun. Really, I researched for a little while and then stopped. And I had to stop for a long time. And
Sure.
Kind of picked it back up, and it was like straight. Everything was coming right out. It was easy, like it was already built.
Yeah.
And all I had to do was just put it on paper.
Nice.
And then it was just like, oh shit, I've got so much I want to put in there, but I can't. Just because you're gonna hear a lot of shit.
Right on.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing today. A little creative exercise, just a little fun. And our what ifs. Brock, do you want to kick us off with your what if?
Yes.
And what is the what if I gave you, sir?
It is, what if the symbiote landed on Earth in 1941?
Nice.
So that opens a whole weird. It could go so many places. I had one part of it being part of a network of symbiotes that were around at the dawn of time when the Big Bang. They were created at the same time as the Big Bang, and it destroyed them because it was symbiotes were what were before the Big Bang.
Okay.
Because what is before that? What was before
The
existence?
King in Black.
Yeah, see? And I didn't research any
The
of that
Void.
stuff, and I knew it was going to be something like that.
Yeah.
But what if it destroyed them and sent them everywhere?
Sure.
So the symbiotes were landing on planets, and are still landing on planets at different times, and then they formed this network with the network of the Earth itself anyway. And they've been here since like prehistoric times.
Okay.
Shit like that, right?
Sure.
So that's one side. I'm like, that could fit in there, but what I really wanted to fit, because that's kind of
How deep do you want to go into?
yeah. It's like the universe is still connected by these the symbiotes, and the symbiote is part of, or is a symbiote with the universe.
Well, and that's kind of how
Yeah.
the symbiote network works, anyways.
Yeah.
That's with Eddie Brock being the King in Black now. Like, we've got to see a lot of that where he can jump to where another symbiote is through the symbiote,
Mm-hmm.
and they're all over in these different, galaxies
Yeah.
and things.
But what if it didn't start at the time that it started?
Right.
You know, so you got 1941. What are you going to put in your mind about 1941 that has to do with comics? Fucking Captain America.
Yeah, it could have been that guy.
Captain
Could have been
America
that Steve Rogers fella.
and the Red Skull.
Yeah.
And there is so much that you can mold to where it's not so far-fetched
Right.
to you, but also at the same time it's like, where could that go?
Right.
You know, where would this extra universe be? You know, which is pretty cool. So I had a lot of fun, and like I said, even how you say you're like, you got a lot of shit, because I do have like 6 pages.
Yeah, that's awesome.
6 pages of shit and it probably could have been 20. You know,
Sure.
But I have a grand scope of something with this, and just let me start.
All right.
So basically, well, let me read this. Space. The vastness is full of alternate histories of every possible scenario. Originally, the symbiotes known as Carnage and Venom bonded with Spider-Man during the Secret Wars, and ended up losing the bond between Peter Parker and bonding with Eddie Brock, and eventually Cletus Cassidy. That's everything everybody knows, right? But in this alternate timeline, the symbiote came to Earth decades before the Secret Wars, 1941. So it's 1933, and Hitler has risen to power and becomes Chancellor of Germany. His radical ideas and pure hatred become the backbone of the Nazi Party, right? Hitler also starts his fascination with magic, the occult, and being from other worlds and dimensions. And beings from... Fast forward to September 1st, 1939, Hitler invades Poland, and the world is watching what he will do next. So we know this time. I mean, it's just kind of, we're not there yet.
Right.
But yet it's just on the cusp, and it could go one way without intervention, right? So it's the normal story for Captain America, normal story for, everything, right? Yeah. So Hitler has become obsessed with his desire to use whatever means necessary and to win, basically take over as a chancellor of the world, pretty much. And in 41, he may get his chance, right? He's been working with a simple but evil underling named Johann Schmidt. They're
Heard of that guy.
Yeah, they're basically on their own trying to create the super soldier, because they want the Nazi race, of course, the Third Reich, to live on 1,000 years.
That's right.
Crazy shit, right? So, of course, I want the same kind of meeting that they had. Like Johann, the way he met Hitler is he was a bellhop in Germany, and he went upstairs because his early life, it was all fucked up anyway. Like
Johann's?
Yeah, Johann with the Red Skull.
Yeah.
He killed a farmer and his daughter when he was really, really young, and then started running. And finally, he was a bellhop in Berlin somewhere. Hitler shows up. He actually brings him his stuff, and Hitler says something like, "I can turn anybody in our country into the greatest Nazi." You know what I mean? And they're like, "Whatever." But he was right there. Johann Schmidt was there. So he's full of all this fucking weirdness and this hate and fucking all this other shit. And that's where Hitler's like, I'm going to turn him. And he does it. Right? And that's how he becomes a Red Skull.
Right.
That's the same.
Okay.
So that whole...
So he goes through his super soldier transformation, has his face turned to the Red Skull.
That's going to happen. No, well, that hasn't happened yet. There's still Johann. Because he doesn't give him the mask yet. Hitler doesn't. Okay. So he hasn't earned...
Oh, I didn't know. I thought that the experiment turned his face that way.
That was kind of for the movie.
Retconned?
Yeah. So...
I believe it. I just didn't know.
Well, I think he gets the whole outfit at the very beginning, but this one I'm kind of like, I'm going to scale that back. So that's different.
Sure.
So, so basically the Skull's in charge of really that whole occult thing. So I borrowed that, right?
Sure.
And he's going pretty much everywhere, right? He just goes everywhere, and he's robbing everything. He's just a fucking evil white dude.
Yeah, just stealing everything of power,
Stealing
mystical powers,
anything that has to do with anything, right?
Right.
But like Hitler can see that he's like, of course, what he did. He's like, he's getting too big for his britches.
Fair.
Yeah. So he noticed he's becoming more powerful and starts planning how to kill him, right? So the serum is already being worked on by Dr. Erskine, right? So he's already been working on it for years and years and years, right? Or not necessarily, months.
Okay.
I'm going to say. So, and he's been working in genetics for a very, very long time, because back in the day, there wasn't a lot of people that did that shit.
Sure.
So it's like he expressed that interest in it, and he was like, man, how are we going to do this, right? Little does everybody really know he's an American spy.
Okay.
Right? So he was converted years and years ago to, so he could actually, you know, it was circumstance is kind of put him there whenever they started looking for, these relics and different things like that. They came across his work in like a journal or some shit like that, and they're like, holy fuck, yeah, he's onto the right deal. Let's make the master race with this guy. So they recruit him and they get him all in there, and he's not an evil doctor, but yet he's still not a good person 100%.
Yeah, he's more about the science probably than he is.
Yeah, but he knows
what they're going to use it for.
And he's already part of, the Americans. So the Americans are in secret always building shit for him. He only can communicate very, very seldomly, and it's always really small coded messages. It's just about progress, right? So they're just building the facilities.
Okay.
At the same time, he's building his facilities and learning what's working and what's not. So it's he's kind of communicating some shit like that, right?
Right.
So they're getting his shit ready, because eventually he's gonna have to have them come get him, right? So he him and Johann or Schmidt work together like side by side. They're always seeing each other, right? He's so convincing, even the Skull fucking doesn't even know, which is kind of weird, but yet he's just like,
he's that good.
Yeah, the Skull is so obsessed, and so is Hitler. So they look past a lot of things, even though, Johann's keeping track of everything, right? So he kind of knows something's fucking up, right? Yep. So the serum is created that whole time. The Nazis pay for it. The Nazis fucking do all the animal testing. The Nazis do all of that shit, right? And that's the classic American thing, like fucking let them go, fucking build that V2 rocket. We'll get them later. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, it was almost the same time. So It's very relatable in that point. So fucking finally, it comes down to it, and the first test subjects are coming. Because he's like, yeah, I cracked the code. This is going to work. He showed him the science, and Johann's been working with him like, yep, no, that's the shit. That'll work, right? Yeah. So, of course, you have the entire, Nazi, heads of the Nazis, right? Who do I have here? Like Goering, fucking everything, right?
Right.
Wasn't it called the Wolf's Den?
Sure.
Where they went? Well, we'll call it that.
Yeah, that's fine.
The Wolf's Den is where they were. It's kind of like his headquarters at that time, or
Schmitz?
at least, yeah. And that's where they all kind of were going to see his experiment. But yet, Erskine didn't really realize that it was actually Johann Schmidt that was going to be the first volunteer.
Right.
So he didn't tell him the whole time, right? So of course, the clever thing that Erskine does to hold on to the serum and everything, he doesn't commit it, to paper. He acts like he's doing it the whole time. So he's putting down all this false bullshit, weird, nothing is correct. It's all crap. But at the same time, it makes sense to Johann, but Johann hadn't been doing it as long. So he knows how to hide it in there and not leave clues, right? So he always sees him doing that, right? So of course the Skull's always going to think, or Schmidt's always going to think that nothing's wrong.
Right.
He's going to fucking be able to kill him and do whatever he wants to, and then he's got his formula and shit, right? Well, he leaves out a key ingredient. He cracks it with the ingredient, but then he leaves it out, which is basically kind of like the last step. It's the Vita rays,
yeah.
So
It's the part everybody forgets.
yeah, he always knows that he's going to, because him and Johann both know that without some sort of thing like that, so they've been trying different stuff. So he figures out the one that'll fuck you up, and he figures out the one that works, and then he's like, all right, let's do this one. So he shows him the real way. But then whenever it comes time to do the trial, he lays him on the table. They're all watching, right? And it fucking literally kills him.
Okay.
Johann drinks a drink. He fucking does everything. It looks like it's starting to work, but then he just fucking dies right there on the table.
Okay.
You're like, holy shit, right? What the fuck was that? So eventually, or not eventually, but 2 seconds later, they're all looking at Erskine and they're like, what the fuck? You just kill him. They're all disappointed and shit like that. They start yelling at him. He's doing all his shit like, no. And he knows it's about time. He thought he'd have a little bit more time, to prepare for the American evacuation or a rendezvous to get him out of there, because he's right close to Berlin and shit. Yeah. So they're really close to the heart of the shit.
Right.
And so he's like, they get into this whole big argument, but all of a sudden Johann wakes up, boom,
Okay.
from nothing, and he's like, holy shit. And then you can kind of see, because we haven't been watching him, that he did start expanding, and you saw this weird kind of shit. But whatever it did to him and his consciousness it drove him crazy, because he was in a weird black void at that time too. And that weird black void was basically something for it just like these beings ripped his soul apart and just weird shit and put him back together, and it was like an eternity, but he was only technically dead
for a few seconds.
Yeah, well, maybe like a 2 or 3 minutes or something,
Okay.
Right before he would have been, but with this he would have still come back unbrain dead.
Sure.
So he comes back and he's fucking evil as fuck already. And he's like, nope, grab Erskine right now. Got all of his notes. Fuck this dude. Because he's like, this worked for me,
Gotcha.
and it's totally working. Erskine's like, shit. So he hits his little bitty, little doo-doo. And he's like, Carol, come here. So he basically, and once he turns on that transponder, the Americans are supposed to be on their way. They're always staying really close on different borders and stuff like that, just to kind of, for all the spies, right?
Sure.
So he's a priority because they know that he had just cracked it. Everything was good, right? And, they were going through with the trials in the Germans, right? Because there was 5 or 6 other dudes that were there. But when Johann did it, he was like, nah, we don't get to see what happened after. Right. So Johann grabs 2 of the SS officers, right, and is like, get this motherfucker up, put him in a truck. They drive a couple of hours out into the middle of nowhere, right? So they're out in the middle of nowhere, fucking, and at this time too, the Skull, or not the Skull, but Johann Schmidt has that fucking, the Hans Landa outfit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's fucking perfect, right? Tailored, everything. That was the first thing he did when he woke up. He just kind of stared everywhere, and then he just put that on. It was like he put on his armor at that point, and it wasn't the green jumpsuit or anything like that, right?
Right.
So they get out there. It's picturesque, and you get to see the mountains, long meadow. Erskine's been blindfolded, so he has no idea where he's going. The transponder's still on, doesn't know which direction he went, anything like that. So they throw him out, put him on his knees, but then all of a sudden, one of the SS officers noticed something coming over the mountains, right? First, it looks like a star, and then it just starts to grow a little bit. He doesn't say much. Johann's talking all this shit, telling him how he met these weird creatures, and whenever they got to a point of ripping his mind and his soul apart, they found a commonality, and it was the evil.
Okay.
Or it was, basically just the evil that was embedded in his soul. You know, it was like an ancient kind of a thing. But then when he's in that other place, which could have been hell, could have been whatever, it was a different plane of existence.
Right.
Because of the way that the chemicals and everything reacted in the weird fucking way at that time with his body chemistry and everything, because come to find out, everybody else dies right afterwards, right?
Sure.
So they know it's a fucking hoax. But for some reason, for Johann, everything works. And he still looks like a normal human being. Nothing's fucked up. He, you know, again, he grabs that suit. He's got home dude fucking right between his sights. But that soldier's like, you know, what's that? What keeps coming at us? So they're all transfixed. Erskine's still got a fucking blindfold on.
Okay.
Hands tied behind his back, on his fucking knees. And then all of a sudden,
Just waiting to die.
Pretty much. And he's not begging. He's not trying to do anything. He's hoping somebody will show up too, because there was always a window of, you know, a couple of hours or an hour or something like that before you get picked up.
Right.
You know, and if he ever had to go someplace, he knows places to find where he can communicate.
Sure.
This is part of the spy shit.
The spy network.
Yeah, the network to the Americans, right? So we know they're coming, you know, and so Erskine's he's just fucking waiting for either death or to get rescued. And he knows no matter what he does, he's got to get rid of this dude, right?
Right.
Or at least help get rid of him, right? So that's almost kind of in narrative, you know?
Yeah.
And so the object gets really, really bright and then just slams and boom, just explodes like a normal explosion. And when I say normal, let's just say gas station size. Right? You know, not one in the desert like,
right.
You know, in T2 or some shit. But one that's like just it looks like somebody dropped a bomb.
Sure.
So they're like, what the fuck? And Johann's already like super whatever the fuck he is, super Nazi. Right. You know what I mean? So he's a mile a minute, but yet this thing fucking transfixes him too. They all go running towards him. So what's fucking totally weird about it is whenever they get there, it just has blasted everything, right? There's a blast radius. I don't know what the radius would be, but it's just nothing but black.
Sure.
But it's so far out in the middle of nowhere that nobody's going to come investigate. So, of course, what's down at the bottom? There's a rock down there. He sends the two dudes down there, right? I mean, he's there. You know, he's like, nah, go see what this is. Kind of like Jordy from Creepshow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's like, wonder how much they pay at the college for this one. You know, I'll give you $50. You know, so, yeah, Johann's just like, he never saw or seen and never really thought about meteorites or anything like that.
Sure.
So immediately his brain's going a million miles an hour on what he could use that for to kill or something, you know? So all of a sudden the fucking thing just like breaks and it just, this ooze comes out like the Blob, but it's all black, right?
Oh, okay.
So it's just kind of like, and it looks like it's soaking into the ground. It looks like it's just normally just kind of like oozing out, right? But then all of a sudden tentacles come out. Grab the two dudes that are down there, right? They totally fucking disappear. It's like, what the fuck? So Johann's up there. He's like, what the holy shit?
Sure.
You know? I mean, he sees it all happen, but yet he's confident enough where he's like, fuck you.
Right.
You ain't gonna fucking touch me.
Well, and he just went through trauma.
Right.
You know, like
it was just 2 hours before and he had all this time. And then the 2 hours that he had in that time, it was basically he was planning everything.
Sure.
He's planning the rise. He's planning how he's going to do it. And he was probably going to kill those dudes anyway, you know, just to see how it felt.
Right.
So the actual ooze is the symbiote.
Right.
That jumps out, goes for him, but no, he's a badass. He fucking grabs the shit.
Okay.
But yet, when he grabs it, he sees, you know, like he sees his future, but not necessarily his future, but he sees like what he could do with this stuff. Like it like transforms him and he's all black and shit like that and he could fucking kill anything, right?
Right.
And this is just going on in his mind. So it's like he's bonding with the symbiote, but the symbiote doesn't eat him. because for some reason, again, he's got that evil thing in him.
He's got the strength in him in too, probably.
That stops everything. So that was a connection. He was almost in that same plane again where the symbiote was. So he lets it cover him all the way up. But it doesn't change shit. It doesn't, no, it's like a see-through. He's wearing his fucking fatigues, whatever. You know, he's wearing his suit. He looks normal, right? But then all of a sudden, the head starts changing. And it, you know, first it kind of expands a little bit, you know, kind of deepens in the sockets. But then all of a sudden it turns red. And it's just nothing but bright red.
Okay.
He's become the Red Skull at that point.
Okay.
And he's bonded with the symbiote. And the symbiote, this symbiote right here, is like technically like the evil one.
Okay, so like a red symbiote actually
Yeah,
would probably
almost.
fit in better, just because that's supposed to be like the more violent ones.
Yeah, almost, right?
Yeah.
And it was just from a meteorite that was probably, let's just say, 1 foot by 1 foot or some shit like that, right? Well, what happened to Dr. Erskine, right?
Yeah.
Well,
what
shit.
did happen to Dr. Erskine?
He after sitting there for like 10 minutes, right? He's like, fuck this, I'm out. So he basically got his bonds and everything. He finds a little small village or some shit. Has no idea what's going on down there in the fucking pagan land, you know. And he eventually like finds a town. He uses that communication device that he has, and they say, "Okay, go to this town, meet this, blah blah blah. We'll pick you up." So he's gone.
Okay,
he's in America.
He's rescued by the United States.
Somehow he lucked out twofold.
right.
You know, and then he gets there, right? So when he gets to America in New York, he shows up, and guess what? The fucking everything is like perfect. They have the facility. He immediately gets, I mean, it's like he flies on the plane, gets down, sleeps for a little bit, gets back up, fucking goes downtown, you know, New York City somewhere, and then goes into this underground facility that's like fucking badass, right?
Right.
So they have built this all up. They're like, man, this shit better work. We have everything the way that you need it. You know, thanks for sending us all of this. While you're on the plane ride, we got this. We got your batteries. We got the fucking Jacob's ladder. You know, you know.
We got the Vita rays.
Yes, we have everything that you need, sir. And they're like, all right, so we're gonna show you the candidates. So they go into this back room, and there's a line of them, right? It's like a big conference room in the back of it, so they could all watch videos or whatnot, or films,
sure,
reels. So basically, they're in there, and all of these soldiers dressed in their normal everything, right? They're all standing there. They all have like a manila folder in front of them all the way across, and there's like 10 of them, right? So Erskine starts going through the list, and he's looking at them, talking to them, things like that. But he gets to one person, and the first person that he gets to is what's his name? Clinton McIntyre.
Okay.
So Clinton McIntyre he's going to be the first experiment.
Okay.
Right. And they know that the first experiment is probably going to be the fucked up one, right? So in a weird way, right?
Sure.
I mean, they know that some shit should happen. So the best candidate, they don't want to use it immediately. Okay. So, but this dude's like a fucking bruiser, right? He's a big guy, probably from fucking Kansas or some shit. You know? He's just a big, tall, redheaded fucking killer, right? You know, so he notices him, kind of goes down the line. Next person that he notices and pays attention to is Isaiah Bradley.
Yeah.
So they're both there. And Isaiah Bradley shows, Erskine this, the American spirit in the way that he's never seen the American spirit because he's always been surrounded with these same people.
Right.
So he's getting that alternative perspective. So he's like, that could be our Captain America right there. Don't know, but he was thinking ahead, and it doesn't matter about anything, right?
Sure.
So when it comes down to it, because this is the end of part 1.
All right.
Because in the months that after he's gone, right? I mean, Johan's like fucking going crazy, right? He's cutting his path through fucking Europe. He's becoming bigger than Hitler in a way, like in a cultish way. It's not a Hydra type of a thing. I mean, they called their project Hydra, but
Sure.
it wasn't. And so, I mean, he's perfecting his serum for himself. For some reason, it's just dying out. It's whatever was left out, right?
Right.
And then he's also bonded with the symbiote, which the symbiote is like connecting him to all of this weird, vile, evil shit all the time. And he's just massacring people. But over on our side, we've already created some dude, right? So the first guy, which ends up being, his name is Protocide. He's actually he was in those runs for a little while. And he goes crazy. Same kind of continuity right there. But yet, I mean, he's still on ice too. Then Isaiah Bradley gets it, and he actually turns out fucking great. But of course, he's black, so this is America, World War II. You know, I mean, it's fucked up. So same thing happens. He gets thrown in jail for actually doing something right. You know. And then we got Steve Rogers. He actually comes in because after he gave the serum to the first dude and he fucking flipped out, he was like, all right, cool. We know we don't need a beefcake. You know what I mean?
Right.
So he goes to Bradley and he's like, that worked fucking perfect. But, you know, I can't do this because of the status quo. This is what America's about.
Sure.
Fuck that shit, right?
Well, coming from Germany, he was probably used to that.
Right. Exactly. And then you got Steve Rogers is the one that actually worked. Same thing happens. I mean, he gets killed, you know, or Erskine gets killed, the whole nine.
Sure.
Everything happens the exact same way. The whole time that the skull's pretty much like fucking taken over is whenever Steve is training, right?
Okay.
So that's kind of basically part 2 is going to be about how Steve gets a piece of the symbiote too.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
See, so that's
all right. I like it.
See, because all can tie in together, and then the symbiote relationship with Johan, because he's so fucking crazy, is like, and I was thinking about somehow the symbiote losing a piece too, and that going to Cap, you know, whenever they were fighting somewhere.
Okay.
So it originally tries to bond with the Shield or something, but no, it actually bonds with him and becomes a fucking, it's just this regular suit too, you know?
Right.
Totally clear, but he's like somehow in his mind too.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a different version of Venom. So you got Venom, which is the Red Skull, technically,
Right.
and then you got maybe Carnage, that's Captain America. So they offset.
So
in a
more
weird way.
more like it, not just a piece of him. It's like he had another symbiote, which they do. Yeah.
It's like we've had pieces of symbiote just out there everywhere, right?
Right.
And especially if they had a network on Earth.
Sure.
Then whenever a certain amount got together, it would start growing bigger, you know?
Sure.
So it took a long time for those pieces to grow molecule wise. And then finally, whenever they grab onto something, cool, they seek out the next biggest piece. And that little piece could keep growing on Cap.
Well, and I think what we could be cool too is, and I don't know if you're going to go more into that or where we
no.
left off. Perfect.
That's it.
Perfect. That was great, man. Because they're both have symbiotes, right? Wouldn't they kind of always know where each other was through that hive mind situation?
Yeah.
You know what I
In
mean?
a weird way.
Least, yeah, in some way.
Yeah, in a weird way.
Know of each other's presence, you know, kind of like
right.
Jedis.
Right. Or maybe the symbiotes don't let them know.
Right.
You know,
right.
For some reason or other, they're still playing chess with them.
I like that.
In a weird way. But then, you come to find out that, I mean, Cap has, you know, he's got a version of the symbiote that keeps growing. So does the Skull, but the Skull is like fucking he's further out.
Sure. Well, and he had a lot of time with that power to amass more power, right?
And that's what he does. And
Nice.
really just kind of goes to, I mean, everything kind of ends up about the same. He would fall into suspended animation just like fucking Cap would, but a piece of that would break off too, and it would hit Bucky, you know what I mean, and kind of protect them both. And They have no idea that both of them are alive, but I was like, how does the symbiote freeze? You know, it's sound with them. You know
Well,
what I mean?
I think you could freeze one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, no, nobody said you couldn't.
Yeah, so it
You know.
protected Bucky from the blast,
Right.
But then at the same time, it protected Steve Rogers when he went into the ice and just put him in a suspended animation. That's what helped with the super soldier.
So you
serum.
wouldn't get a Winter Soldier necessarily, but you'd have a almost super soldier for the U.S. Army while Cap was frozen.
Yeah, and he takes on the mantle of Cap
Okay.
in the 50s.
Okay.
So Bucky Barnes is the Cap from the 50s.
Without the cool shield.
Right.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, still, he probably still has
Yeah.
a shield, but he probably doesn't have one made out of vibranium.
Yeah, he's still all. I mean,
Adamantium alloy or
he
whatever.
kind of almost looks like he does now, but it's a little bit more patriotic. You know what I mean?
Sure.
A little bit more.
Probably less long hair.
Yeah. yeah. Yeah.
That's how
know,
you know he's a rogue agent. His hair is long.
So, and then you could do a whole bunch of shit with that too.
Absolutely.
You know?
Well, and you think of like with Bucky too, like if he's had that time, like he's more of a soldier. He's going to be able to more create projectiles and things, and like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think that
I
that
think-
would be interesting.
Yeah,
you know?
Cap and his symbiote, I see them working in a way that because of who he is, what he stands for, literally what's in his head, it changes the symbiote in a weird way.
Right.
Like symbiotes change their host.
Well, and symbiotes aren't all necessarily bad.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like the good and the bad are in each symbiote.
Just
It
like in a
depends on-
person, yeah.
It just depends on who they gravitate towards or who they connect with.
Correct.
And Cap's, could be good, but it's still fucked up.
Yeah, yeah. It's still a symbiote.
Yeah. But it doesn't manifest itself.
Clintar, I think they're called.
Yeah. It doesn't manifest itself in that same
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
And it still kind of keeps everything with him, but it's more internal type shit.
Nice.
And he'll never explode. He'll never fucking die. I mean, he is a man out of time at that point. Because
Absolutely.
he's the only fucking one besides the skull. And of course, you have the skull going after the cosmic cube and disappearing through that with the symbiote attached and the symbiote not attached, and then there's fucking really Eddie Brock Venom.
Right.
You know, it could fucking bounce everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. You'd go anywhere with that.
Yeah,
No, I
that was
like it,
my-
man.
That
I
was
like
my
it.
what if.
Heck yeah.
What if Captain America? No.
Well, I like it. I thought that throwing that symbiote in there could take you a lot of different directions.
Yeah.
Like when I first thought of it, I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking of like Captain America, like throwing his shield, but it's got the Venom tendril on it, and he can like swing it around, you know?
Right.
And then I was like, oh, but what about Red Skull? What about Bucky Barnes? You know, like you could go so many different directions.
Yeah. Even if
What if
you
Namor got it?
Yeah, you just really kind of, and then I even had an idea at one point that was like, what if every superhero suit was an actual symbiote?
Ooh.
And just whenever they were being made, the symbiotes were always seek that shit out or some shit. They're like, it's a costume.
It's going to go on a powerful thing.
Yeah.
I like it.
Daredevil, you know?
Yeah.
And they're all like connected that way. I don't know. But I wanted to keep a lot of things that but know that was going on underneath. Is the symbiotes were still acclimating in this weird way too.
Sure.
You know, so it's still helping them grow and get into their shit. But then also you got the symbiote world where they could fight. Symbiote whatever dimension.
Yeah.
Anything like that. And then connecting on different worlds and shit like that, like you were saying.
Yeah.
I think that I like that idea. And I think with the symbiote, you could really, Spider-Man could still get a piece. You know what I mean? He can
Well,
still have one.
that could happen, and Venom / Carnage, that could all generate from the one that he brings back from Secret Wars.
Right.
Which are unrelated to whatever happened in 1941.
Yeah.
Right?
And nobody really,
You
still.
wouldn't even make that connection until way later. Right?
Yeah, that's the one thing that Cap never talks about.
Right.
And this is the one thing that nobody knows about the skull. Everything like that is their
Absolutely.
symbiote, you know?
Yeah.
And his is a patriotic one. He's white.
White guys.
Oh, white symbiote. All right.
Well, I like that, man. That was cool.
Cool.
Heck yeah.
Thank you.
So, Brock, you gave me, I don't even know what to call this because I never really figured out like exactly what it was, but basically it's what if Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards, and Dr. Doom were friends / allies. Didn't hate each other.
My idea behind the whole thing
Mm-hmm.
was whenever they met, what if they hit it off like awesome and they worked really well together?
Yeah.
And they just
I got you from there.
Yeah, they were awesome.
So I think it's important before, like, as we lead into this story, for you to know where both characters are at the time, right, when this is happening, because there's some time that passes in the comics that it's really it's really important, right? So if you know Dr. Doom's past, his mother basically made a deal with Mephisto to kill all the guards from this Baron that was like going after their village. When she did, what she didn't know is she also basically, it's Mephisto, so he fucks everything up, killed all the children of their village, except for her own son. And ta-da! And I think she had to give like her soul to make sure that he was protected. There's little, it depends on what you read, right?
Right. Read.
Get it? Yeah. So she ends up getting killed. He later on finds her chest full of magic stuff because she's into the magic, hence her Mephisto deal, and he starts learning about that, even though the father tries to keep him away from it because the mother said something about keeping him away from the dark, right? The father actually gets summoned to the Baron because the father's a healer, right? To take care of the queen, or not the queen, but his wife, whatever, a baroness. But she come to find out she has cancer. There's nothing he can do about it.
Right.
But he gets blamed for her dying. So then he goes back to his village, grabs his sons, like, let's get out of here, right? Later on, they find, and then Doom's young at this point still, right? They find.
Is he in like his tweens?
Yeah, I would say right there. Like you see like them in the snow, like because they ran from the village, knowing that this guy was coming to get him, and the dad's like frozen over him, and he's got his jacket on top of his son, but he doesn't die there. He actually is saved, and then they basically take his dad away to the Baron's place to be killed.
Oh,
Gotcha.
Okay. So
but they let Doom stay there. Because Doom actually told, like, when they went against him and his dad, he's like, yeah, you can definitely exile us, but just know that what my mom did will be nothing. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, I will come back.
Yeah.
So in that time, basically, he learned that magic, and he's super smart, right? So he starts building these magical and technological devices.
Yeah.
And he's taking out the Baron's guards and things throughout going from town to town doing this, right? And gets noticed by the U.S. government. And they're like, hey, we would like you to come work with us. We're going to give you, like, you'll go to school at New York or Empire State, whatever it was, New York University. I don't remember which one.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, you'll work on these projects for us, too. So he's like, yeah, let's go. So let's go over to Reed Richards and where he's at, because this is going to be a point where they're intersect, and we're going to catch back up to some different points in history, okay?
Right.
So Reed Richards, he is very, very smart, doesn't really have much of a home life. His dad's not around much. I believe his mom was passed, but he's super smart, and like, he's getting degrees at like 16, you know what I mean? Like, he's doing it.
Yeah.
He's getting all the things, and he's staying with a family. Boarding with a family, and that's Sue Storm lives there, and her brother Johnny.
Gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha. So it's the same. Yeah.
And so he's going to New York or Empire State as well, whatever it is, and they meet up. So in canon, this is all canon so far, right?
Yeah.
In canon, that Reed uncovers that Doom is working on a project to try to, I don't think he knows at the time, trying to get to the dimension where Mephisto is to save his mom.
Okay.
In canon, Reed tells him, hey, I saw this, you were working on this, and I think your calculations are off. And Doom, with his hubris, is like, you're an idiot. I need no one. And that's when it explodes, messes up his face, but he does see his mom in there.
Oh, yeah.
And then his face, like, comes Doom.
Yeah.
Well, this time, he looks over the calculations. He's like, my God, you saved my life. You know what I mean? This would have exploded.
Yeah. That was the
And it was the way Reed brought it to him, too. He's like, hey, I just wanted to show you what I saw. Yeah. It was a different way of bringing it to him rather than just like, these are wrong.
Yeah.
Because you can't come to Doom like that.
Yeah, you might need to change some things. Here's the math.
Yeah. So, and, he's like very thankful that he helps him.
Yeah.
And he does teleport in there and he does see his mom, but he comes back and he's fine, right?
Yeah. Yeah. He hasn't turned into. Yeah.
Meanwhile, he's still working on this project, which is really kind of the underlying for the Doombots. That's where he starts that for the U.S. government.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So over the next year, like him and Reed become really good friends. Sue's still in high school or whatever. Because Reed's a weirdo.
Yeah. She hasn't graduated yet.
Yeah. And they become really good friends. And by the next year, they've created this machine where he can actually feels like he can go in and grab his mother and pull her out. Like they perfected this piece that they need, like how much time they need. And based on them going in a couple times and seeing it, right?
Right.
Even though the last time Mephisto saw them too. Right?
Gotcha.
So they go in and he actually does grab his mom. He gets out. Mephisto's kind of ready for him, but like it just happens so fast, right?
Yeah.
And he pulls her out, and his mom's saved. Now what, at that time, he's like talking to his mom, like after, gives it a little bit of time. He's talking to his mom and she's, he's talking about, talking about how they're going after their village still over there. The Baron's still oppressing their people and whatnot.
Right.
And, they should go do something about it. So he's like, okay, well, I'm going to leave school. And Reed's like, I hope to see you again. Like, they're still good friends.
Right.
So while she's also a very powerful magic user. So she starts teaching Doom. Like really like advanced stuff he couldn't have learned from just having her stuff.
Right.
Reed goes on. He's still doing his school, right? For his like 3rd or 5th degree or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't
master,
know. Yeah. His master. But
Master 12.
So he's doing his thing, and Doom goes back and he's helping like kind of start defending his area, his people, his tribe or whatever. But the people really they still remember his mom killing all the children.
Yeah.
So they're not like really down.
Yeah.
One of them sells off the information because they find out there's governments that are looking for them. Oh, by the way, also when he left the U.S., he destroyed, he hit a button and all of his project for the U.S. government destroyed.
Ooh. Yeah. So they're after him too.
Right. So they sell off some information, but the government that's looking for him right then is not necessarily there. Now, he does get to go back and see Valeria, so you can have that piece.
Mm-hmm.
But, so he's starting to form this relationship with Valeria. His mom's teaching him this magic. They're trying to repel these Baron's men and all this, right?
Yeah. They're freedom fighters with magic.
And the Baron now has kind of ascended. He is like the king
of
everything, right?
Oh, okay.
But they sell off this information to the Russian government that was also looking for him because, power. And the Baron is working with them, or he's not the Baron, whatever he is now, the king guy. And he finds out exactly where the mom is. And they know they can't just go in, right? So they use a Russian sniper to take out the mom. Mm. When they do, they also drop a bomb. And it kills quite a few people, including Valeria. But Doom is saved through his mom's magic. Like she pushed it on him rather than to save herself.
Oh, shit.
So
surrounded him with something.
Right. As she was dying from the bullet through her head as the explosion happens, right?
Yeah.
So now Doom he's okay, but everybody's dead. Valeria's dead. His mom's dead that he did all this work to get her back, right? So then that's when he goes to the monastery. He's got a scar now from that explosion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he goes and makes his Doom armor.
Yeah.
But he doesn't do it where he takes the hot and puts it on his face.
Yeah.
And in fact, it doesn't quite look like that. It's not as Doom.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. It's the early iteration of it.
Yeah, and I would say it's not even as imposing. Like, I think a little more like
the Tin Man?
Superior Iron Man when Doom was Iron Man for a while.
Okay.
Like maybe with the green thing. You know what I mean? Like he's still there, but it's not quite as grimacing, Now Reed doesn't know any of this has happened. He's working for the U.S. government. He gets put on a rocket mission or a rocket project. And everything happens the way it's supposed to.
Right. They become the Fantastic Four.
They do. Meanwhile, Doom goes back and just kills well, he doesn't really have to kill everybody. He starts killing the King's men and all that.
Yeah.
And the people rally behind him because they're tired of being oppressed as well, right? Oh. So their guards don't even stop him. Like nobody's ever been able to take this castle for hundreds of years, and they just let him walk through, and he kills the Baron guy and becomes the leader. and that was, but when he did that, he felt like he released that anger and hate in his heart. Still a good dude at this point. So, Fantastic Four is back. Everything we know about the Fantastic Four happens the same way it did. Like, they get jacked up, they get powers, Thing becomes a rock guy, they get, Reed makes it.
I was looking at the Doom armor.
Yeah. Reed Richards, makes them celebrities, basically, to overcome like the guilt that he still has over them becoming, crazy.
Yeah.
Specifically like Ben Grimm, being a rock all the time and all that.
Always trying to help him find a cure or something.
Right. As all this happens, Doom comes in. He sees like all the stuff with Reed and all that, Reed's also been watching the stuff with Doom rising to power there. So Doom comes. So you think of the first time Doom was in the comic books. Mm-hmm. I think that was like number 20 or something.
Oh,
number 2 or number 5, whatever.
Yeah,
it was like early on.
Yeah, really
super
close,
early on.
Yeah.
After Mole Man, basically. So same kind of timeline, right?
Yeah.
But he's like, hey, I've got this country right now. I'm turning it into a democracy. I'll still come in and help them whenever they need stuff, but I'm letting them do their own thing. And so he joins what would be the Fantastic Four, and it becomes the Fantastic Force, which was actually a comic in the 90s with some weird members of the Fantastic Four, right?
It was like the robot.
Yeah, no, I don't think it was quite Herbie time, but anyways, so they're doing great things. They're defeating bad people. They're fighting off alien invasions, but in the meantime, they're doing lots of altruistic things. They're selling not only Reed's patents, they're selling Doom's patents and building this together, right?
Yeah.
So Galactus comes. Silver Surfer first, right? Now, here's where we have to remember what happened in Galactus's first appearance.
Yeah.
The only reason that they were able to, 1, know Galactus was coming, and 2, be able to beat him was because the Watcher came.
Yep. Gave him the ultimate nullifier.
Watcher doesn't come.
Ooh.
He doesn't feel he has to.
Oh.
Because the Fantastic Force can take this.
Yeah, right.
So, Silver Surfer comes, just like in the stories, he turns against Galactus. Gets basically like you're staying on Earth kind of a deal. Like his powers are somewhat taken away.
Yeah.
He still has powers, but they're not as powerful.
Yeah. He's still got the cosmic power.
Right. So no ultimate nullifier, no nothing like that. Like throughout the year, there's been a few throughout their time together. You do see Reed, as Reed does, get really into something and like stays away from his family and his friends, and just working on stuff. And they talk about that, like Sue really is like, come on, man.
Yeah. Get a room.
And then, so Galactus does come, and they don't know how to beat it. They don't have an ultimate nullifier. Reed comes out of the lab finally. right? He's been in there the whole time, like just trying to figure it out. And Doom's been working on stuff with the team, you know, trying to figure stuff out.
Right.
Silver Surfer's working with them now, you know. Reed comes out and he's like, I figured it out. And he goes, it's me. And he gets in a little Quinjet and he flies up and he offers to become the Herald of Galactus.
Oh, shit. Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So Galactus accepts. Silver Surfer is still banned to Earth, right? So now he's part of this Fantastic Force. So they still have 5 people, right?
Right.
So it's almost as if Reed is the perfect herald because he can calculate where they can get the most amount of power by taking the least amount of sentient life.
Right.
Right. And he's loving it because he's exploring the universe like he never has. Right.
He's able to become.
He's learning. And
right.
And his power too. He doesn't do like Silver Surfer or look at me.
Yeah.
It's actually, he has the power cosmic.
All right.
But he makes almost like a circular ship around him.
Yeah. That's,
you know what I mean? So he can have his sensors, and like that's how his mind works. You know what I mean?
He can record a lot of shit.
Right.
Yeah.
So he flies through and he's doing that, right? Meantime, back on Earth, these guys are, you know, they're doing Fantastic Four things. All the things that happened in the Fantastic Four, they're taking care of it, but honestly, a lot more efficiently.
Yeah.
Doom is super brilliant too, and Surfer stays on with them the whole time that Reed's gone, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, Reed comes back to visit, not as a herald of, like, not Galactus isn't right behind him.
Yeah.
And you come to find out that, like, Doom and Sue are getting ready to get married and that she's pregnant.
Oh, shit.
You know what I mean? And he's sad about it. He's like, you know, and they even have a conversation about how they still care about each other, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, but he was here and I'm in love. You know, we love each other.
Yeah, it happened.
Right.
Yeah.
So he decides, because he was going to give all the herald thing up, he had kind of figured out a way to do that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, without having to have a sentient being there. So he was going to make these creations that would be heralds, and there'd be multiple of them.
Yeah.
That were basically doing the same thing he was.
And then also tied to all of his knowledge. So,
right.
Yeah. So he reached that knowledge and he was like, all right, it's time to go
now
back.
I can go back.
Yeah.
And then he comes to find that, and he's like, I'm just going to go back to being a herald. Right?
Yeah.
And then that's kind of where I left it.
Oh. Well, shit. Yeah. And then it would just be you have the Fantastic Force. Dude, that's pretty badass.
So you would have, you know, Johnny Storm.
But would it
Sue
be
Storm. Thing.
Franklin Doom?
No, because I think actually I had that and I didn't say it. Like when they do end up having the child, they actually name it Reed.
Oh.
Reed Von Doom.
Oh. I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that. But then I can also see, that them taking over Latveria, basically, running every country is sovereign, I guess.
Well, what they don't have to do is they don't have to deal with the U.S. anymore.
Right.
Like as far as telling them what to do.
Right.
They have a complete autonomy within Latveria.
Right.
Though he does set up like a parliament to kind of run the country, he's still like the guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
but he wants it to be more,
run by the people.
Yeah,
the right way.
By the people, for the people.
They can do whatever they want to at that point, and they can be happy.
Right.
Without kind of like the normal shit. So,
but if shit goes south, he's the guy that can be there for him.
Or somebody does something stupid. Yeah.
And go ahead.
Every other country still does their own shit.
And my expectation is that like you're filling in the time like when him and Reed were on the team together before Galactus comes, because that's a couple years later.
Right.
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 So think of all the things they could have invented together in between there, right? So not just their individual stuff, but fusing that together, right?
Yeah.
And in fact, that was one of his idea for the creation that was going to follow. It wasn't going to be like the circle thing that he built for himself.
Right.
It was going to be almost like Doombots that would go out for him.
Oh, okay.
Because he still knew about that technology from Doom.
Right.
You know what I mean?
He just applied that into the different way to where the shit was learning at the same time.
Correct.
And then all he had to do was build the vessels.
Yes.
Yeah, and input all that stuff with the right information, like you said, get the right amount of energy, for longer periods of time. He scienced that shit.
Yes, yes, he scienced it good.
Yes.
And he had all that time to not focus on anything else, right?
Yeah,
Other
yeah.
than learning more about the universe as he went through it.
Right.
Right?
And the time that he spent was like enormous, but yet him coming back was, again, part of his learning about
Right.
time and shit like
Well,
that.
and the thing for him, I mean, in his mind, yeah, like I did what I had to do to get to where I could come back,
Mm-hmm.
but that could have been 5 years,
Right.
Right.
Or it
So,
could have been
I mean-
6 months.
Right. But on Earth, things still move forward, right?
Right. He could have been gone for eons.
As everyone who was ever in the military can tell you.
No, but that's badass. I mean, Doom taking over, but yet actually being a malevolent person.
No, benevolent.
Benevolent.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So instead of being malevolent.
But he still has if not even more magical power than he had before.
Right.
Because he had that time with his mom, couple years with his mom to learn,
Right.
like from the horse's mouth, not just teaching
Yeah.
himself, right?
And he could have studied with Strange as well.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean
just
that's
studied,
different
yeah.
monastery and all that, but
Yeah.
yeah. But at this time, yeah, since he's a benevolent person,
He could
Absolutely.
always, have those interactions like
and
that.
Doom was almost actually, I mean, Strange has actually said Doom could be the Sorcerer Supreme,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you think of a benevolent Doom could definitely become the Sorcerer
Yeah,
Supreme.
that's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
No, that was badass, dude. You could fucking turn that whole world into fucking everything.
I think that I would love to build that world, but also I could do a whole separate comic on just Reed's adventures.
Yes. Yeah,
You know?
you could. No, him going through space and figuring out how the heralding thing works. And,
Yeah.
I mean, seeing,
We would have so much more insight to Galactus, I think, as
Right.
well.
and then,
And they've done some comics where we've really gotten into him, but
Right. I mean, just having like where he could go grab the sentient life and he knows where to take them,
right.
and then just transplants them,
Yep.
and then Galactus shows up and nobody's there and he's none the wiser. You know what I mean? Then
but
the
it's
Doombots
got
do the same
enough
thing.
energy to still sustain him. You know what I
Right,
mean? That's the
right.
key, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it might have like they might have to. He makes arcs or some shit like that. You know? What
Well,
I
he
mean?
does what he can.
Yeah.
You know?
It makes some sort of arc before he gets there, which is they're pretty much DNA. All
Yeah.
their seeds and shit like that.
Yep.
And he goes into the very
And like he's already got it planned on what planet's going to be able to inhabit them, what aliens down the road he could introduce to that same planet maybe,
Right.
and they would be able to cohabitate. Like he's already doing all these calculations just as
Right.
he's learning about each one of these civilizations, these planets,
Right.
this, this,
right,
that.
right. And I mean, he's still hopping, and there's still people that are losing their lives, but it's just for
It's much more minuscule than like
it's for the greater. I'm not going to say greater good, but it's basically for the future.
it's the balance.
It's
And-
solving that balance.
And that's,
yeah.
I mean, that's what we find out about Galactus later anyways. Like, it's necessary for him to be here because
Yeah.
actually, and what he also does is keep the celestial population down.
right.
So by taking and focusing on those celestial bound, like the celestial egg planets,
Yeah.
think how much power you could get once Reed uncovers which ones those are,
Yeah, he could find those.
and then
Yeah.
also keep that celestial.
But then he can also
Yeah.
build him a power supply.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
really.
He puts together a power supply that goes on his fucking ship.
Well, especially once like he really I think you would have it where first he's doing his herald thing. Like he
Mhm.
comes back, he talks to Galactus, he does this whatever. Eventually, like him and Galactus form such a bond that Galactus just gives him access to all of his.
Yeah, the ship. Yeah,
Yeah.
so he learns absolutely everything.
And you could actually have him come back like when there's some great, because the Watcher always shows up when it's something like these people aren't going to be able to do this on their own, kind of a deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the next time an event like that comes back, maybe he comes back with the ultimate nullifier.
Ah, yeah.
And he's like, no.
no, yeah.
Even though this is my job, my other job is to protect these people.
Right. He could run into that situation where he's the Silver Surfer in the original.
Right. And
on a
you could-
different planet.
Right. And you could have, where he does come back into the main continuity of the comic occasionally. Like, hey, this is, I've already got this going on. I've got some time, just like Silver Surfer does.
Yeah.
You know?
This
and then he comes back and he's part of the team-ish.
Somewhat, yeah. He might come back for a couple of years.
Yeah, or just come back for a week and hang out, whatever.
Yeah, he's Reed.
Yeah.
At that point, too, he could program his Doombots to learn more, and then pretty soon, they could do his job, like you were saying, do everything out there, create the power supply, but then also find the Celestials. Basically, you're cleaning up the fucking universe.
The other thing that you're doing is all that feedback. Like, I would do, like, the Maker helmet, the Maker from the Fantastic, from the Ultimate Universe. He was, like, the bad guy. Leading into Secret Wars.
Yeah, I think
and all that when the Ultimate Universe was destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
But have him have, like, a Maker helmet. And so all that feedback from those Doombots, if you will, just goes directly to him like a neural link.
Right.
So he's always learning, even if he's not there.
Into his ship, too.
Yeah, oh, yeah. But I think that way, like, even if he was he's aware of it all the time. Like, at any time, he could be like, this is what's happening in this quadrant of whatever. You know what I mean?
And Galactus, I think, on his ship is the knowledge of everything, pretty much.
Pretty much, a lot.
Everything that, so far.
Right.
And I've known...
Because he was a scientist prior in a basically in a different universe. Like, he survived the Big Bang, basically.
Right. Yeah. He was part of the Celestials.
I think it's the 7th age or something like that. The 7th universe.
Oh,
or the 8th, or maybe it was the 8th and we're the 9th, something like that. So it's like cyclical that this happens over and over and over again.
Right. Yeah. No, that's fucking pretty badass, though.
So I mean,
you could just go anywhere with the Reed stuff, but then the Fantastic Force, too. Holy shit.
And, dude, like, that's a team. Like, there's no version of the Avengers that I wouldn't be afraid to fight with that Fantastic Four.
No, it'd be Doom, fucking Surfer, Sue, and then Johnny Storm.
And Thing.
Fucking A.
And I think that would be the one thing you could play off, too. So there's multiple stories. Like, there's a story where it was actually Ben Grimm that did something to that machine that caused it to explode because he hated Victor.
Oh.
So I think it would be cool, like, to have them kind of be at odds. Even though, like, they know they're both good people.
Yeah.
But they're always kind of at odds, because...
Like the Yancey Street Thugs.
And Ben Grimm... I think what you would play on is Ben Grimm being very jealous of him and Reed's relationship because Reed's his best friend.
Right.
But he's not on the same level as what Victor is.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that would be a cool... Like, there's always good when there's a little bit of tumultuousness on a team as well.
Yeah, but then that could go on forever until Reed comes back.
Or until something happens and Victor saves Ben, or Ben something happens and they save each other.
Right.
Or Victor figures out how to turn him back into a human. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He actually cracks the deal and lets him turn into the thing.
Or maybe Reed comes back and is like, hey, I figured it out while I was out there.
Yeah, here you go. You can turn into the thing whenever you want to. Poof. He just taps him on the nose. Boop. Boop.
Little power cosmic.
Oh.
Little power cosmic boop right there.
That got me in the schnuts.
But yeah, that was my what if. I hope that would have lived up to what your expectation was, sir.
Fucking A, it did.
Right
on. That was fucking great. That was awesome. I never would have.
All right.
Got to take that out. Never would have taken it that way.
So, like, I had a couple ideas. We'll just talk about those real quickly. But I think the main other one that I had was where they did become friends, but because of that, they went evil.
That's
the Maker, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I was like, no. What if it's the opposite? You know what I mean? And now how would that change? And I listened to I read. I don't know if you noticed. Bought a bunch of Fantastic Four comics, and I was reading stuff, and I was listening to videos about the Fantastic Four, and just trying to get the timeline down, because that was the biggest thing. Like, when do you need to make the differences, right? And still keep it so locked, like it's pretty locked into canon to a certain point. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then when that canon comes back around with Galactus, how much time was that?
Right.
Do we have enough time for this to happen? You know what I mean?
And that's why I got into part 1.
Right.
Because I was like, fuck, I could go so deep into the extra super soldiers,
Sure.
And go into a little bit more of I like the idea of Protocide, but I mean, it was a fucking written in the stupidest way.
Right.
They need to
Well, you could
retcon
fix
shit.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
They've retconned better things.
yeah, right,
So-
right. But then also Isaiah Bradley, playing off of that with the symbiotes. I don't know. There's just a lot of shit.
Yeah.
I mean, Isaiah Bradley could have actually been the Captain America from fucking,
Sure.
from the 40s,
Right.
But there's two Captain Americas, One's got a fucking symbiote attached and a fucking badass shield, and Isaiah Bradley's got like fucking bullshit,
Right. And you said Bucky becomes the 50s one, right?
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah,
because
because it explodes and then it takes a piece.
so he like is protected. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he lives.
Even if he cause it'd be cool even if he still lost his arm.
Yeah.
And it was just like he only had an arm when the symbiote made it.
Ah, see?
That would be cool.
See? And then he could get trapped in some sort of suspended animation because maybe he was going crazy with the symbiote attached and creating his arm because it was doing too much. So it was really invading everything and it was fucking him up, making him forget.
Yeah, well, like they did with Peter when like it would take him out at night and fight and he wouldn't know.
Right. So he's doing all kinds of assassinations and shit like that.
Yeah, so
Same
it would
Winter
be like
Soldier.
a Winter Soldier thing.
Yeah, but kind of.
But I would assume that if the Russians came to try to pick him up, that
Yeah.
he would kill them all.
Yeah.
That wouldn't have gone that way.
Yeah.
But he could still be an assassin,
Yeah, I think it would be like all by day he's Captain America. He does that shit. But at night you have no idea. Nobody has any idea. Whenever he's asleep, the symbiote takes over, and it could be days before he's like, "What the fuck?"
And the symbiote would look completely different when it took over, right? It wouldn't look like the Captain America you know and love.
Nope.
So
it's just like day and night.
Yep.
It's just
That's
like
one
fucking.
tired Captain America.
It's just like finger snaps, fucking Spider-Man. Yeah.
He's like, I don't know why I'm so tired. I went
It's
to
like
bed at 8:30.
I don't fucking get this shit, man. I'm getting old. No, yeah, and to see fucking Doom actually do good with everything would be fucking crazy.
Well, I think the one thing I liked about that was that in my mind, that's two different comic books I could create out of that one deal.
Right,
You know what I mean?
Or more.
Well,
shit.
definitely more. But
Yeah,
like, I
yeah.
think like initially those are
Yeah.
pretty easy.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, it just kind of like with this, it was like there could be so much behind it if you just had maybe 5 issues to do it, and you leave it at that. And if it does grow, then you're like, all right, I'm going to expand.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think you see that a lot, right?
Yeah,
Like, hey,
yeah.
this kind of worked, and it was kind of like the Gwenpool thing,
Yeah, what the yeah.
Spider Gwen.
Yeah,
That was just like a one-off kind of deal, and then people loved it.
right. I'll never understand some of the stuff,
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're not
and-
that target market.
No,
That's okay.
And it's we need to do a DC one like that too.
Well, I think that's what we talked about. We'll put it out a little bit further so that we have time to work on it, things like that. But I thought this one was fun. It was a good exercise.
Hell yeah, it was nice.
Yeah.
It was nice. It was cozy.
Let us know what your what if ideas are, ladies and gentlemen. Where can they do that, Brock?
At dropculture.com.
Dropculture.com.
.com. Yes. Go visit the website. Yeah, there's cool stuff on it, like our shows. And drop a line.
Yeah.
And don't be one of those fucking Wix dudes that are like, "Hey, I'll improve your website." I don't give a shit. I know that's your job, bro. But if I needed help, I would have reached out.
That's
by
right.
now.
That's right.
And it's not about knowing how to do it. It's just like
Nobody cares.
This is exactly what we need.
Yeah.
But yeah, contact
Absolutely.
us there. Yeah.
Yeah, you can also shoot us an email at dropculturepodcast@gmail.com. You can hit us up on all the socials, which we're so active on.
Yep.
And as always, this episode is brought to you by Mataint. Nothing smells better than Mataint.
Dig that Mataint.
Peace.
Dig that Joker.
I love it.